I'm warning you, there will be blood. I cannot wait to get started on this month's Plan With Me. Inspired by the Stephen Sondheim musical, Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Let's get started. My name is Kanova, if you are new here. If not, welcome back. So normally I would prefer to do watercolors on a separate sheet of watercolor paper and then put them inside my bujo, but this particular cover spread is going to be layers of pages, so I kind of wanted to not have it be quite so heavy and rigid. We're getting to the point where it gets difficult to shut the journal, so just trying to cut back on the bulk a little bit. So I'm working here on a cityscape. Ideally, I would use a wet on wet technique, but bullet journals, even bullet journals with great paper like this one, do much better when you don't put too much water on them. So I'm working with two colors really, a red and a black, and I'm just using water to tone down the colors to create a number of different colors on the page. I am working on a cityscape. A rough sort of Victorian looking cityscape is the goal of London. If you look really hard, you can spot my version of Big Ben over there. This is the bottom layer of the cover page, and I just wanted it to look like the city was melting. So I did pre-sketches of our main characters, Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett, and I am inking those characters here. I based these drawings on a wonderful cartoon illustration that I found. I couldn't find the actual person who created it, so if anyone knows, please let me know and I will put that in the description box. My camera messed up a little bit, so you missed the inking of Mrs. Lovett. I did her first, but here I am working on Sweeney. So I'm doing this on vellum, which is see-through, and the general idea is that you will be able to see through to the bottom cityscape. Let's take a look at it inside the bullet journal for a second, just so you can see what I'm trying to do. So at this point I realized that I inked Sweeney on the wrong side, and I still wanted him to go in the direction that I had originally drawn him, so I'm going to re-ink him really fast, but I'm going to save you the trouble of watching the whole thing. Alright, so I am using alcohol ink because I wanted there to be blood everywhere. I warned you, there will be blood. So alcohol ink, I would not advise putting it directly into the journal because it will seep through to the other side, and you will have an opportunity to kind of get a peek at what happens there. So here is my calendar page. Everything in the bullet journal for this month really had to be done in sections because we had to wait for pieces to dry before we could assemble it. So you don't see it, but there's quite a bit of time while I'm waiting for the painting to dry, and I'm working on the drawings, and now I'm here while the blood, the alcohol ink, dries, and it dries rather quickly, but you still want to make sure it's completely dry. So I'm working on my calendar page. I wanted a big calendar this month, so I'm taking up the entirety of the page. You can see I'm using a stencil instead of making effort towards trying to do calligraphy because I really wanted this sort of Victorian-like font. I guess it's Victorian, but I just like the way that it looked. I'm using some more alcohol ink, and I'm going to cover up pages. Now, I decided to do that because I am going to put the black paper over it, so where the alcohol ink seep through the page won't be seen. So I am going to use a Dutch door. I decided to do a bigger Dutch door than I used in the previous month because I had a lot of things that I was going to need to write. So I cut out 12 pages and glued them in. The glue can kind of get messy, but this was necessary. if you had a blackout journal, then this part wouldn't be necessary. I eventually thought it would be a better idea to just put glue on the journal pages rather than on the blackout pages. Now the blackout pages came from my Archer and Olive notebook to create headers at the top, and the headers are a one-stop decoration for the whole month. So my weeklies are contained to 2 pages each week, and then the top part is used. So I used actual Sweeney Todd sheet music, but you can't really see it too much here. And then I covered it with blood and glued it onto the top. I used some red to fill in where the Archer and Olive notebooks won't go all the way in. So my notebook is a Maisie Lane notebook, and the Archer and Olive notebook paper that you tear out isn't quite large enough to fit the whole thing. As you can see, I am working on my line a day. I absolutely love this page. It has evolved over time. I've tried different things. I've one line a day of gratitude, things I'm grateful for, but I found that a line a day is better because it better suits my mood or mindset. While there are things to be grateful for every day, some days you just need a space to really sort of let what you're really thinking out there. And so I prefer the line a day. All right, we are moving very steadily into the mood tracker. So I decided that Sweeney Todd spreads without Signor Pirelli would be not Sweeney Todd spreads. This is a funny character in the musical, and I'm basing my spreads on the musical. I'm a huge musical theater fan. I'm a musical theater actress, and this is one of my absolute favorite shows. So I decided that my mood tracker would be bottles of Signor Pirelli's magical elixir, and of course each day they will be different colors. I decided to stick to a black and white theme throughout this bullet journal spreads with a little bit of red, and then I decided to use the gold. When I was finished, I kind of wish that I had just sort of went with the silver, since I had used the silver for Sweeney's knife, but I kept incorporating the gold as we went. So sometimes you start something and you think about it later and wonder why you didn't do something else. There's little blood spatters. I decided to do this with watercolor. All right, now that the line a day is dry, I'm going back to the space to do the calligraphy work. Now, this space was much too small to use my stencil. The stencil I found on Amazon. If you are curious, it came in a pack of stencils. If I can find it and it's still available, I'll link it in the description box. I purchased the stencils and could rarely use them in my bullet journal because of the size of them. So typically what I do is I'm looking at the stencil and hand lettering them. This stencil, though, in particular was difficult to do by hand. I paused before I started and thought maybe I should just write it normally, but I figured why not give it a shot. That's what my bullet journal is for, to try new things, to get better at things. So nothing ventured, nothing gained, and this is my try, or my effort, if you will, towards doing this particular font. It was really quite difficult to do, especially just seeing it on the page. I almost needed to ink it out first on a different page and do that, but I didn't. And here I am adding some gold accents to the letter just to make them pop just a little bit. I'm using a Uniball gold Signo pen. I love these pens. I have them in white, gold, and silver. They are my go-to pens when I am doing anything with gold in my journal, even though I have several different types of pen. They just write beautifully, and they dry fairly fast. You have to give them a second. So I wasn't really happy with the blood situation on this page. It just wasn't looking quite realistic enough. So I decided to go ahead, and I figured that it would be fine because I have a tracker on the other page and I could use the blood and it wouldn't be a problem. So I'm going in here and I'm doing my mood trackers for the month. I used some more paper with sprinkles of blood on it. I added more blood. It was all about more and more blood as I went along. I'm trimming the edges. I tried to use my corner cutter, but it didn't work very well. All right, now we're gonna get started with the pop-up. So I folded a sheet of paper in half and I drew a 3.5-inch circle so that it could be used as the top of the meat pie, and then I cut off the sides. What I'm gluing right now is a internal support, and it's 1.5 inches by 3.25 inches, and I did 2 of them just to provide a lot of support. I don't want it to be flimsy. And then of course our sides, which are 6 inches by 1.5 inches. So I am making a slot, which is a little bit bigger than a slit, and I made a finger that is coming out of the meat pies, because if you know anything about Sweeney Todd, the contents of the pies are of people. I know, it's gruesome and gross, but awesome at the same time. So we are working here on the sides. I wanted the pie's edge to look fluted when it popped up, so I put those together and cut the sort of wavy lines to represent that. And then I'm also doing a little bit of pre-drawing on the pop-up pieces just as a guide. Now, you're going to see me go in and erase them because I don't want to actually see them. I just want to have a light guide, and I don't know, I guess I can't draw lightly at the same time. It's hard to see. So again, I'm working with red paint in various colors. This is a cheap palette I got from Michaels. I love actually working with it. There's lots of color options and it does the job. We'll save the fancy stuff for the fancier paintings, I guess. Alright, so I am using Scor Tape to tape in the support right in the center. And you can't really see it, but there is a circle drawn there, and there are lines drawn on the side to show where I cut those parallel lines, so we know where everything fits. As you can see, I'm gluing all the pieces together, and I'm waiting to see how things are fitting before I cut the finger strut to determine the size. Next, we are taking the pie sides and we are assembling this. This takes a little bit of sort of time to figure out, but basically you are gluing your pie sides down so that the flat side lines up with the top, and you can have it right there along the edge, and when it pulls up, it will pull it up. Don't worry, we're gonna curve it in a moment. We just have to get these flat edges. So the best way to figure out placement is to close the notebook, but then you can't see. So lots of trial and error. It's really hard to see. I'm going to link a tutorial by Pop-Up Master Matthew Reinhart, which he gives a great tutorial on how to do this. Mine is a little bit different in that it just has the one layer, and I think in his tutorial it's a birthday cake, but I'm doing a meat pie. I just think his tutorials are easy, and for those who don't want to do all the math and such, you can follow along really easily. So I'm trimming the 6 inches off the side pieces. You don't want to have less than what you need. Having more just means you can trim it, and basically I'm just trying to trim it down so that it's more of a circle when it pops up. I opted to use a tape from, or I should say, wrapping paper, because it was clear, and I just thought that it would be fine for the bullet journal in terms of construction, and wasn't going to be opening it so much that this tape wouldn't do. Sometimes you just need really strong tape, and all the supports on this are done with a strong tape, so I think that we are pretty good. All right, the stencil. I realized as I'm voicing this video, doing the voiceover, that my S is backwards. I don't know if anyone else noticed, but I'm using my stencil. This is not the ideal way to do this. I probably should have went ahead and used that circle placement and put the Sweeney Todd in before, but you know, best laid plans, I guess. I just hadn't really thought about it. All right, this is probably my quickest video ever, but it is time for the final flip. Guys, this was a labor of love. Sweeney Todd is one of my absolute favorite musicals, as I said before, and Halloween is one of my absolute favorite holidays. And I had a lot of different ideas for my October spreads, but this one just kept coming back to me. I was working on something else, and then I just kept thinking about doing this Sweeney Todd spread. I loved how it turned out. I'm not sure it reads as well in the video as it does in person. It has the whimsy that I love in the cover page, and then I think the other pages are much simpler than I've ever really done before in my bullet journal. More collaging than I've ever done, even though there's not much collaging, using the actual sheet music, and lots of trackers coming up this month. October is a big month with a lot going on, and I'm not so much tracking to see how much I do, but when I do it. You can use trackers for lots of different things, and that's how I'm going to do it. And I can't wait to color in Mr. Pirelli's magical elixir. I hope you enjoyed this spread as much as I did. See you next month. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe.